Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
So, Travis Hunter, who earlier this season went on IR, has been announced that, he has some LCL damage. It's not major. It seems like it's only the LCL that's damaged, so no other part of the knee is damaged. But it is enough to end Travis Hunter's season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And look, injury is unfortunate. It's part of the game, but it's unfortunate. And never going to sit here and encourage people to celebrate an injury. And I don't think that's what people are doing right now with Travis Hunter. And I hope Travis has a speedy recovery. It seems like this is going to be an injury that he's going to be able to come back from and retain his athleticism and still be hopefully somewhat close to the player, or if not the full player, that he has the potential of being. Again, for the Browns to have won their trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, it does not require that Travis Hunter stinks. I know people sometimes frame it like that, but there's a world where Travis Hunter can be a perfectly good player for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Browns still are fine with what they get out the trade, or happy with what they get out the trade. And I don't want to paint the narrative like, oh, Travis has to be bad in order for the Browns to win this trade. But what we always knew about this trade, because of the first round pick being involved, was that Travis's rookie year was always going to be the most important when it comes to judging this trade, because that would be the season that has a direct impact on what draft selection the Cleveland Browns get from the Travis Hunter trade, right? If Travis Hunter had like a monster rookie year, run rookie offensive player of the year, and then led the Jacksonville Jaguars to a 13-win season, we'd be feeling pretty stupid, sitting here with like the 28th pick in return with Travis, even though you got some good pieces. Now, there is a lot to say about this trade, and I think we're at the point of this trade where we can say, at this point, it's hard to imagine that Cleveland will end up being a loser in this trade. I think for sure you can say that this is not going to be a Julio Jones trade at all. It never was formatted like a Julio Jones trade. You were only moving back from 5 and not the 20. But you can definitely say it's not going to be that variety of trade. And I think this trade is looking more and more as the weeks go on like a huge win for the Cleveland Browns. Now, we're going to talk about that and more, but real quick, let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. So I think you can make a solid argument that right now the Browns are on path to win this trade in a variety of different metrics, right? What we know is that the Browns swapped the 2nd and 5th pick in order to pick up a draft selection that turned into Quinnshai Junkkins. They also used the 5th pick on Mason Graham, and they picked up an additional first-round pick. Now, let's say we go on Tankathon real quick. The Jacksonville Jaguars win 7 games, right? I think 7 games feels fair for the Jaguars right now. Maybe they win a little more, maybe they win a little less, but let's say they win 7 games. That is a win percentage of .411. If we go on Tankathon and we look at where a .411 win percentage would land right now, it would land about at the 12th or 13th pick in the draft. So if you're the Browns, for moving back 3 spots, you got Quinnshai Junkkins, You only move back 3 spots, so you're still able to get Mason Graham, and you might get the 13th pick in the draft from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Depending on where they fall on the strength of schedule tiebreaker, which they're at 509, so they have a stronger strength of schedule number than most teams, which is going to hurt them when it comes to draft selection. So somewhere between pick 13 and pick 16, they're probably going to end up landing that pick being. So it's going to be a mid-first round pick. That is a significant haul for only moving back 3 spots. You get Mason Graham, who, let's talk about Mason Graham real quick. I know a lot of people make a habit of saying uninformed things about Mason. I feel like he has been, like, because he plays defensive tackle and because people are conditioned not to think defensive tackle is important. And look, I am a firm believer that defensive tackle is a way more important position than people give it credit for, right? They give all the glory to edge, but we have had situations like in 2022 where the Browns have had the best edge in football in Myles Garrett, but one of the worst defenses in the NFL because we did not have good defensive tackle play. And for as much as people can say, oh, it's easy to get a defensive tackle, it's not. We watched the Browns struggle to do it without spending premium draft picks on the position. So I don't buy this idea that like the defensive tackle is just a meaningless position or a valueless position. I think that is a take from people who just only care about the shiny fantasy football parts about a football team, right? Like a wide receiver, a corner, or something like that. Like things that are more perceptible if you're not watching the all 22. But defensive tackles certainly have a huge impact on every game on Sunday, and dominant ones are rare. Game-changing defensive tackles are rare. Guys who can consistently knock down dominoes are rare. And what we've seen from Mason Graham so far in his short career is somebody who has flashed the ability in year one to be able to do that. Like he's had games where he's just knocking down dominoes. He's had games where he's flashed as a pass rusher. He's had games where he has flashed as a high-level run defender. He had, a 30% pass rush win rate versus the Jets. Keep in mind, Myles Garrett only had a 7.8% win rate against the Jets. So really good stuff from Mason Graham with a lot of pass rush snaps against the Jets. This is a guy who is demonstrating that he could be a really good player. And keep in mind, defensive tackles, especially, guys who play heavy on the interior and not really like Aaron Donald's a bit of a different beast because he was kind of like a pseudo edge defensive tackle kind of thing. But guys who are true 3-techs like Mason Graham, that usually takes a couple of years of getting stronger to really hit your stride as a defensive tackle. Go look at Cam Hayward's first couple of years in the NFL. It really took until his third year for him to hit his stride as a defensive tackle. And then once he hit his stride in 2012, he's been a solid player for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last 13 years. And I think that's what you have the chance to have in Mason Graham. Somebody who can be one of your anchors on defense for the next 13 years. I think that's the hope for a guy like Mason Graham. And I think the building blocks are certainly there of a player who has the potential to be that. And I think it's real unfair how people have kind of talked about Mason, but I think Mason has had a pretty strong rookie year. He continues to show the progress that you need him to. And, I think another thing that you could see Mason's presence helping with is Myles Garrett's improved sack numbers, right? Like Myles Garrett is able to thrive off of the attention that Mason Graham is taking up right now, too. So there's a lot to be said about how Mason has played his rookie year, and I would imagine his defensive line coaches are very happy with him. I would imagine Jim Schwartz is very happy with him. I would imagine that the team overall is very happy with him. So yeah, Mason Graham, pretty happy with that selection. Quinnshai Junkkins, since he plays a much more visible position, I don't think I have to explain why Quinnshai has been a really good selection. But if you want something that's not necessarily, like something that's like a data point, but something that you can really just feel when you say it. The fact that we have not heard a lot of complaining about Nick Chubb this season is a testament to how good Quinnshai Junkkins has been, right? And a lot of the lack of complaining about Nick Chubb started when Quinnshai Junkkins hit the field, right? He is clearly going to be a really strong running back who, despite the fact that he's dealing with pretty poor offensive line play, is producing at a solid level right now. He's better than I thought he would be coming out of Ohio State. He's a much different running back than I thought he would be coming out of Ohio State. I think Ohio State fans got mad at me because I was like, hey, you got to ask questions about Chip Kelly at this point with how like Ashton Jeanty looks in not Oakland, but with Las Vegas, and how he used Quinnshai last year. Because at Ohio State, Quinnshai was used as a one-cut downhill power back almost, right? Like he was just one cut downhill, explode into somebody's back. And that gave off the impression to a lot of evaluators that he didn't have vision or like the patience to find and manufacture different rush lanes. And that ended up not being the truth, because we're watching Quinnshai right now show that patience, show that ability, when that's not something that he was able to demonstrate in his tape at Ohio State. And I couldn't imagine what that rushing attack could have looked like between him and Travion Henderson at Ohio State if that had been utilized, because that's a dangerous ability that he has, right? That patient running, that ability to kind of read his keys and get behind his blocks and squeeze into tight spaces, like that Le'Veon Bell-like ability, while also being a thumper the way that he can thump. It's very impressive for Quinnshai. And I think that draft pick is the one that makes me most confident in the Browns process, because that's a selection that was difficult to figure out, right? The Carson Schlesinger pick, a lot of people saw his tape, knew he was going to be good. The Mason Graham pick, a lot of people put him as a blue chip prospect in this year's draft class. It's not a shock that Mason Graham is good, right? But the Quinnshai one was one that got criticism, a pick that got a lot of criticism. And it took a lot of imagination to be able to see what Quinnshai could be if you just give him a couple of different tools. And him getting those tools has really taken his game to the next level. So you got to give credit to Deuce and his running back staff and whoever else was evaluating, pounding the table for Quinnshai Junkkins as their running back of choice in this draft class in the second round, because that was stuff that was difficult, right? Like hard to evaluate, that they somehow figured out with him. So those are the two selections that you have right now. The other selection, which could end up being probably somewhere between 13, right, to 17 in the draft, that selection could be Jordan Tyson. That selection could be Mekhi Lemon. That selection could be Carnell Tate. Now, if we're sitting here next year and the Browns look like they got a cornerstone defensive tackle for the next 10 years, they look like they got their running back of the future in Quinnshai Junkkins out this trade, and they get a wide receiver who's capable of maybe even getting 1,000 yards or more, we're going to look back and say to ourselves, damn, that's a haul. Now, let's go to the Jacksonville side of this and why it is I think that the Browns are just straight up winning this trade. There's a lot of different metrics to view this by, but the Jacksonville Jaguars gave up their first-round pick in exchange for the Browns' first-round pick. They also gave up a future first-round pick and a second-round pick for the rights to draft Travis Hunter. If we use approximate value, which is a stat from Pro Football Reference that gives football players, their stats, a average approximate value score over time. If we're using approximate value since 2020, like for a first round pick in 2020, the approximate value of a first round pick is about 24 points. So if you're the Jaguars, you're expecting 24 plus 24, and then a second round pick's about 17 points. So 24 plus 24 plus 17, we're talking about 65.94. If we're using the exact digits, let's just say 66 approximate value points. That's what you're hoping to get out of Travis Hunter. Now, it's worth mentioning, if we go from players who are able to get that amount of approximate value points in the time frame that we're measuring, there is one wide receiver that has been able to get the over 66 points, right? And that's Tyreek Hill. So if Travis Hunter became Tyreek Hill over his career, then they would have been about even with approximate value with what they gave up in the draft. Now, he's a two-way player, so we're going to look at this a little differently, right? What Travis Hunter needs to be successful or to make that pick worthwhile is, on offense, he needs to provide the value approximate of T. Higgins, and on defense, he needs to be a corner on the level of Marshawn Lattimore. Now, we will find out if that is approachable for Travis Hunter. It's a high task. We're talking about two guys who were Pro Bowlers at their position. That's what it's going to require from Travis Hunter to be able to live up to the amount of picks that they gave up to go get Travis Hunter. For the Browns, they don't need one person to be as good as T. Higgins on one side and as good as Marshawn Lattimore on the other. They just need the players that they drafted to be decent or good, preferably really good, right? And right now with Mason Graham, he looks like he's going to be pretty good. Quinnshai Junkkins is already pretty good. And that draft selection with everything that's going on with the Jags right now, their season not looking great, looks like it could be on the better side of where you would want it to be. It's hard to imagine a world where the Browns aren't the winners of that trade. Right? Now, I know it's hard to imagine for some people that the Browns actually did something right when it comes to a big draft trade. I think it helps for some that we were trading with the Jaguars, and if a team has a equal history of messing up draft trades, the Jaguars are right there with it. But I think the Browns made the right decision. And again, this is coming from somebody who was not a fan of the draft trade when it happened. But I can't help but say to myself, I'm happy with it. You know, like even if you're talking about, hey, the Browns could have that production that Travis had before his knee injury, we're talking about a guy who did not have more receiving yards or touchdowns than like Harold Fainin. And that's no disrespect to Travis. It's just Harold Fainin has been able to produce, and that was a third-round pick at tight end. And he's outproducing Travis in both of those categories. You also add on top of this, one of the things that was brought up about Travis and people who did not want to take Travis number 2 overall that we can't ignore. A lot of folks worried that he was not built to be durable on both sides of the ball because he's not the most brolic guy in the world. He's a rather thin player. And right now, those concerns are very valid. I mean, this guy's missing more than half of his rookie season because he got injured. And that was the big concern with Travis, right? If the Browns had spent their number 2 overall pick on Travis Hunter and he had been out for like 3 weeks, and then he got announced that his LCL was torn and he needs to be out for the full season, we would be devastated right now. Now, we're already not a good team, but I mean, could you imagine how devastated we'd be right now if the season's going the way it's been going and then Travis Hunter gets hurt? I think that the Browns are at a situation where they probably made the right move here. And that At worst, this is going to be a win-win for both teams. But I don't see this being a loss for the Cleveland Browns. I think we're pretty close to guaranteeing that almost, right? Like, it depends on what you get with that first round pick. If you get like a Mekhi Lemon, and Mekhi Lemon comes in here and tears up the NFL, and you got your wide receiver 1 with that pick, yeah, you absolutely tore up that draft. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, you ran off with that pick. You made the right decision, and you kind of make Jacksonville look like fools at that point. But at the very worst right now, it looks like it's going to be a win-win for the Browns and the Jaguars at the very worst. And that's more or less kind of depending on Travis getting healthy and being a good player, which I anticipate him being. How do you feel about that? If you were like me and you weren't a fan of the draft day trade, how do you feel about how it's worked out so far? Has this changed your mind or perspective on certain people in the organization? I think for me, this entire offseason has changed my perspective on Andrew. I came into this offseason less skeptical on Kevin Stefanski, more skeptical about Andrew Berry. I'm right now sitting in the middle of the season, much less skeptical about Andrew Berry's ability to do his job and downright out on Kevin Stefanski's ability to do his job. How has the way that this trade has worked out so far made you think about that? Y'all let me know in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.